Hi, welcome along. I'm not quite sure what happened to my my countdown there. It seemed to suddenly disappear. It's supposed to be on for 30 seconds, but it seemed to cut short. Hence my slightly vacuous expression at the start of that live. Hi, welcome along to you. I am Dr. Marianne Trent, and I'm a qualified clinical psychologist. I put these sessions on every year at both interview stage and application stage. And why, I might hear you ask? It's because during psychology application season, it can be really stressful. If you don't know any qualified psychologists or people to ask, then it can make you feel quite lonely. And so I like to put these sessions on so that you just feel a little bit more supported. So please do let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Please drop a comment in so that I know that this is going okay. But for anyone who's tuned in and doesn't know what the purpose of these are, what even is a psychology professional career, I hear you ask? Well, in order to become a professional psychologist in the UK, you have to do a psychology undergraduate degree at university, and then often you'll need to do a master's, and then you'll usually need to do a doctorate as well. Because I'm a clinical psychologist, that is the route that I took, along with a number of various related jobs like assistant psychologist. But that is not the only route. Other routes are available. But whatever the route, it's fair to say it can feel like a pretty anxiety-provoking process. So if you've got any questions for me to answer, please feel free to drop them into the chat and I will do my best to answer them on the live. I know there's about a 30-second delay with the comments coming in. So if you're like, why isn't she seeing what I've just typed? It might be just because there's a short delay, but I will try my best not to miss you. So these sessions started in 2020. So we are into our 5th year of running this free support service. Thank you all for watching before, but if you are brand new, you are absolutely welcome as well. I think I'm supposed to be streaming via Twitter, which is now X, but it did just come up with a message saying that I needed a premium subscription to stream. So it might be that it's actually not streaming on Twitter. I know they did enable Twitter/X comments to be shown. And so if you are watching, hopefully you can comment. But if you are watching on X and you're like, why is she not answering me? It might be because I haven't seen your comment. Since I last did a live Q&A, they have stopped us being able to stream live into Facebook groups as well. So you'll only be able to watch this via one of my Facebook pages. Is there any questions? I spotted something that was a little bit different. Well, on the face of it, it looked a bit different, but actually I think it is in fact the same. So it's about the kind of research, publications and disseminations section. They've tightened up the wording for the phrasing for that question, but actually I don't think it's any different than the question already was. It's just trying to make sure that you are answering the question that is being asked of you. So I hope that might explain things a little bit for you. But yeah, if you've got any questions about that aspect or any other aspects of the clinical form, let me know. And I know that the counselling psychology doctorate seems to be running a little bit later behind in the application season than the clinical psychology season, certainly at least for one university, as I'm aware of somebody who was very recently offered a place to train, a self-funded place to train as a counselling psychologist that they were interviewed months and months and months ago for, but only came to fruition, only came to offers coming out, I think, very end of August, might even just almost have been the start of September. So very much later than that which we're used to, because of course with the clinical psychology application season, the applications open usually at some point early September and close these days mid-November, with interviews being on offer usually March, April and May, depending on which course centres you are applying for. So counselling is obviously very different. I know educational psychology runs a similar time scale. So if you've got any questions that I might be able to support with for educational psychology, let me know. Forensic has a tendency to be kind of different times of year, I think, depending on whether someone is in employment and kind of accessing qualifications that way, or whether they've seen it advertised somewhere. But if you know different, let me know. So let me give you a little bit of background about myself. I haven't seen any comments or questions come through as yet, but yeah, don't be shy. Please let me know if you have got any questions. So I qualified in 2011, which is a little while ago now, isn't it? Like, feels like a bit of a lifetime ago. Lots and lots of things have happened since then. And I was offered 2 places to train at 2 different universities. And I trained between 2008 and 2011. I, on the whole, really enjoyed training. It's I knew it would be tricky. Bits of it were. But I came out the other side still wanting to be a qualified clinical psychologist. I was unemployed for a little bit because there was no jobs in 2011. And then in December 2011, I started working in a CAMS service. Worked there for almost 4 years and then worked in an adult trauma service at 8A. Well, it was really community mental health team, really, but essentially lots and lots of trauma work. And then I started doing private practice and have had a few different books. So the Grief Collective, the Clinical Psychologist Collective, the Aspiring Psychologist Collective, and Talking Heads. And then, of course, along came the podcast. The Aspiring Psychologist podcast. If you've not yet listened to it, it's on all your usual podcast hangouts, but also on YouTube as well, where I am Dr. Marianne Trent. And then, the membership was born about 2.5 years ago, probably coming up to 3 years ago, actually. It'll be 3 years in February. Where are we now? September. So about 2.5 years now, the Aspiring Psychologist membership. Right, I have got a question here. What do you think? Let me just put that on screen. What do you think about a career in health psychology instead of clinical or counselling psychology? And are you aware of what kind of patient interaction it's possible to have being a health psychologist, e.g. devising interventions to help health behaviours? So I would recommend that the best thing to do is probably to check out the podcast episode that I will drop here for you. Health Psychology, Dr. Marianne Trent, because there was an absolutely beautiful podcast episode which I did with my guest Nicola O'Donnell, and that is going to be the very speedy way of you getting a really good overview of what health psychology is. That is, I've dropped it in the comments on YouTube, but I don't think I can share it with you. Let me share screen with you, then you should be able to see. Present, give me 1 second, and then it will let you know what you're looking for. Then I spelt it as Gelth Psychology when I searched for it, which is not ideal, but you should be able to see there. That's what the episode looks like. What is health psychology? How to become a health psychologist. And it's a really, really lovely episode. So that is what I would suggest is the best thing to do there. So I hope that is a reasonably helpful answer for you, Victoria. I think it probably depends a lot on which service you find yourself working in and what placements you're doing as to what patient interaction you're getting. Or it might just be that you're doing public health initiatives. I think it probably will depend on who your supervisors are, what your placements are, and what your goals are. You know, what you want to do ultimately. Do you want to work kind of one-to-one, or do you want to do something that's a little bit more a bit warm? Do you want to do something that's a little bit more public health messaging? You know, do you imagine yourself to be helping with the advising of kind of, I don't know, like the pandemic situation? There would have been health psychologists involved in that, in thinking about change behaviours and how to get people to adopt things and to kind of not scaremonger, all of that jazz. So I hope that is useful, Victoria. Sarah, do you have any tips for making connections with clinical psychologists? I really want to gain experience in perinatal psychology, but there are no available jobs in my area right now. Thank you. Well, you're so welcome, Sarah. I have got a podcast episode that I think you should check out as well. Let me just search for that. This is, have I still got it? Here it is. So it's this one. Let me share this with you. Oh, I didn't want to watch it. I just wanted to have a look at the thumbnail. Let me click pause. Is that going to let me? Oh, no, it's not. Why is it playing? I don't want it to play. Right, stop it. Hold the line, caller. I don't want it to play. Right, there we go. Let me just zoom in a bit, but not play it. Okay, so this one that I'm going to share with you is a really helpful episode. I promise you not all my answers will be. Check out this thing that I've done. But this episode, how to get an assistant psychologist job, AP post psychology student, with two of my guests. I had an assistant psychologist and a qualified psychologist, is a really helpful watch because it actually helps to break down the myth that you might necessarily need to have worked in a particular area to get a job in that area, and helps you to think about the skills as being transferable and that you've got the potential and the capacity to work in that area, even if you haven't yet had the opportunity to do so. So please do check out that on YouTube. Don't do now. Stay with me. Stay with me. But also, in terms of making connections, what I would say is come and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Dr. Marianne Trent. And then just start following other people who you think might be really interesting. You know, start having conversations, start dropping comments on posts that are of interest to you. See if they reply to you. I don't think you necessarily need to, like I said in that podcast, you don't necessarily need to have worked in that area. I'm going to stop short of recommending honorary roles because they're contentious and because I don't think they are particularly fair on people who can't afford to do them. But that might have been something I would have suggested in the past. But just get chatty, connect with people, follow them on Instagram, drop comments in, make sure that they start to know your name, and just wait for opportunities to come up. I know that not everybody can kind of travel nationally to different jobs. You may not want to uproot yourself and move to the opposite end of the country, but of course keeping a wider eye on the recruitment situation, for example, track jobs, NHS jobs, setting up alerts for them and setting up alerts for companies like St Andrews Healthcare can mean that even if you don't plan to apply for that job yourself, you're getting an idea of what the job description says, of what the person specification says, so that you're kind of better armed to be able to think about how you might keep an application in the background ready to go for when your dream job comes up, but also to know that the way that jobs like assistant psychologists work is that basically don't think that your skills aren't transferable. So don't not apply. Don't not apply? Yes, do apply. That's the double negative. Apply to jobs in different areas because if you've got a paid role in an assistant psychologist role or something similar under the supervision of a qualified clinical psychologist, for example, or even if you are under the supervision of a forensic psychologist or an educational psychologist. Basically, the key is an HCPC practitioner psychologist. You'll then be able to apply for other roles in future, and you would stand a better chance of being shortlisted if you've already worked at that level, at that capacity, using the skills, using the expertise, reflecting, having clinical supervision. You'll be an even better candidate on paper. So I hope that is helpful, Sarah. Let me just unshow that one now. Oh, I'm sure there was another one on there a minute ago. Yes, there was two. I think it's the same. It's the same question. So I've answered that one and then I displayed it again. So I hope that's helpful. Got another question here. I tried to scan them in case someone slipped in a naughty word. I don't want to put that on there. Would being a peer support worker be relevant experience to get onto a doctorate someday, both counselling and clinical? Would it be best to stay away from peer support and work mostly with clients? So I would say that if you have a choice between, for example, working in a supermarket and being a support worker, and you're aiming to ultimately become a professionally qualified psychologist, hands down, 10 out of 10, every time I would choose working as a support worker. But of course, what we know in support worker roles is that you are likely to be being line managed and or supervised by someone in the nursing profession rather than necessarily clinical psychology, but sometimes in roles there's an opportunity to shadow people, maybe to shadow assistant sessions, shadow sessions or assessments with qualified psychologists. Perhaps if when you're in your support worker role, and I know you said peer support, but any kind of support worker role this would apply to, perhaps if you get the chance, if you know you're, for example, in a forensic service, and you know that the escort ratios for a client being assessed are 2 staff to 1 client, then perhaps if you have interest in psychology, you could ask whether you could be considered to be in the escort numbers for any psychology assessments. Does that make sense? So if there's an intake assessment or neuropsych assessment and there needs to be for safety, perhaps the client is unpredictable, or even for older adults, perhaps they can become distressed and suddenly become aggressive, then maybe you could volunteer your time to be considered for that, for the escorts, or the what do they call it? I can't think what it's called, when you are assigned to basically watch someone, keep them safe, keep others safe from them. What is that called? It completely slips my mind. If you know what that is called. Yeah, I don't know where that word has gone, but you know what I mean. Just gonna have a quick look at Insta and see if we've got any. Why is it just doing that? That's weird. I don't know if people on Instagram have just been looking at that timer. I don't know why that would. Don't know why that would still be on there, but I don't think I've got any questions. Oh, I have got a question. Let me just answer the questions here. So sorry if you couldn't see what's going on. So Shan2728, I've messaged my academic supervisor on LinkedIn because he doesn't work at the uni anymore and he hasn't responded. And my undergrad supervisor is from 4 years ago, so I'm worried about what to do. Well, I can absolutely understand your concern in that position, Shan. What I would say is contact the university directly, perhaps try and telephone them rather than email them, because you've still got time. Your references need to be in you need to have submitted your reference details before the application deadline, but there is time afterwards for them to be kind of getting their reference to the people at the clearinghouse. So I would say try to call the university and explain the situation and ask if there's any forwarding contact details for the academic supervisor. But undergrad supervisor is fine. For many years, I had my undergrad research supervisor do my references. So, you know, and you can explain that. Of course, there's a section on the form to explain. If you need to explain your choice of references, you could just explain what you've said there. I've been unable to get hold of, and my university couldn't get hold of my MSc academic supervisor. So I'm using my undergrad supervisor, and that's the best you can do. SJ Lord, if you have something that's pending submission, can you still detail this in the dissemination section of the form? So what I would say about that, SJ, is if you've had notification back from a journal that you are definitely going to be published, then you can put that to be published in, and if you know roughly what month that will be, then you can put that. They may even be able to give you the all of the reference details for kind of what edition number, what volume number, what page number. But if you haven't yet heard from them, or if it's still in the kind of checking and screening processes, perhaps it's being peer reviewed, then you probably, what I would do is I would just write submitted to, and then put the journal that you're kind of liaising with, because you can't write it as a publication if it's not yet happened, or if you don't know it's going to happen, or if you're intending to submit it to a journal, then I would write intending to submit to, and that's the best you can do. Because for me, I think it's better to put that for which you might get some sort of element of points, rather than don't put that at all and leave that dissemination section blank. Hull Lancaster, I have no research publications. What would you suggest putting in the research or publications question? It feels wrong not to put anything. Yes, I agree. So Hull, in my aspiring psychologist membership, I always suggest that people think outside the box a little bit. It's not just you know, journal submissions we're thinking about here. We're thinking about, have you done any training events, or have you done any public meetings? Have you presented at any conferences? That also counts as a dissemination. Have you been on any podcasts? Have you produced any leaflets that have gone out trust-wide? Really think about how you have contributed, how your knowledge has benefited those around you through the disseminations that you've been involved with. Are you involved in any research at the moment? If not, there's still time. You can get involved. You can see what's out there, get started, and then hopefully have it as a dissemination that you're working on that project. I think that's all the comments on Instagram. I hope that's helpful. Let me just come back over here. Sorry, Hannah, yours ended up on for a long time. I hope that's helpful. Sarah says, thank you, Dr. Marianne, very useful advice. I really appreciate it. You're really welcome. Oh, there we go. It's like we're tuned in to the same frequency, Sarah. Yes, so you can include research presentations in the dissemination section. So it doesn't have to be necessarily just a publication in a peer-reviewed article, for example. Or could you maybe think about generating your own? You know, can you pitch to a journal? Can you pitch to, I don't know, a BPS publication to generate your own dissemination, your own publication? You don't need to wait for them to come to you. You can think outside the box there. Let me just click back over to Instagram, see if I've got any other questions there. I don't think I have. What else have I got to say? Yeah, I think it's not streaming to X, because it says it needs to be a premium account, and frankly, I don't know about you, feels like I already pay for enough of my social channels to warrant X, and X feels a little bit controversial now, doesn't it, with all the cancel culture that's going on. So I don't think I'm going to be giving any money to Mr. Tesla. So yes, I will remove X from my StreamYard for future broadcasts. I don't think I've got any questions coming in at the moment. Now might be a good chance to tell you about the next free Q&A, which will be happening at 6 p.m. on Monday, the 14th of October. So do get that in your diary. Also bear in mind, now is a particularly great time to check out the Aspiring Psychologist Collective and the Clinical Psychologist Collective books. People say that they give them a really nice insight into what it's like to be reflective, what it's like to think about your growth, what it's like to think about how to notice when it might be your time to think about moving on to a new job even. And that, you know, some people scribble all over their books and kind of use it as a way of comparing and contrasting their own development. And yeah, people just leave very favourable reviews. Even today, I've had a message sent to me on LinkedIn from somebody saying that they're reading the Aspiring Psychologist Collective and they're just loving it. It's really igniting and reigniting their passion for psychology as a profession and thinking about their journey. And if you recognise that it's your time and you're ready for the next step, then please do consider checking out the Aspiring Psychologist community, which is our free Facebook group. And there's also the Aspiring Psychologist membership, which is run by me. And every Monday, the first 4 Mondays of every month, we have a special session. So tonight's is at 7:30 and we're doing CBT skills and formulation. And that is hosted for us by a qualified clinical psychologist who also teaches on CBT programs. So she's a real expert and you get access to her once a month, all for the membership price. There's always at least one session run by me, and we try to have 2 kind of relevant areas. We've got a research clinic coming up this month in September, and then we've got one on looking at working, you know, weaving in your knowledge about forensic into a clinical setting. So really great lineup for September. And hot off the press, if you were to join the Aspiring Psychologist membership for 6 months in one go in single payment, or for 12 months in one go with a single payment, there is going to be an offer that I will honour, that you will get. If it's 12 months, you will get a 1-hour one-to-one with me, or your choice of 2 30-minute one-to-ones to use at application season or interview season. That would be your choice. And if you sign up for 6 months in one go, you'd get half an hour time with me to use at your choice of application season, interview season, or whenever you like, really. So please do check that out and let me know if you need any details about that. Let's have a look at what Sonia says. Hi, Sonia. Hi, I often see you on LinkedIn. It's lovely to see you on the live. Hi, Marianne. When do I need to start applying for next year's intake to the clinical psychology doctorate? I have no idea about the timescale for applying. Also, how do I find the universities to apply to? I've heard there's a website for this, but not sure what it's called. Also, do I need research experience or experience as an assistant psychologist before applying? So the Clearinghouse website is going to be your new best friend. You can absolutely check that out. You can kind of have a think about, you can look at all the courses, you can look at all the details. You may find it helpful to get hold of an alternative handbook, which is produced by the BPS. So if you're a BPS member already, you should be able to access the alternative handbook for free. And that gives kind of real trainee feedback about what the course is like and kind of what the values are and what their experience of training is like. So that might be a really useful way of kind of getting to grips. And then of course there's the Clinical Psychologist Collective and the Aspiring Psychologist Collective, which nicely describe lots of the processes involved. Let me make sure I'm covering all the areas. You don't necessarily need to have been an assistant psychologist before applying. Some people come straight from kind of thinking about having been social workers or counsellors or kind of psychiatric nurses, for example, maybe even physical health nurses. They haven't always worked as an assistant psychologist. Of course, a common route now would be a PWP, so psychological wellbeing practitioner, or a high intensity CBT practitioner. What would usually be similar across the roles is that hopefully you will have had access to a qualified HCPC practitioner psychologist to help you think in supervision, to help you reflect, to help you formulate. So you don't have to have been an assistant, but of course what we know is that assistant work does rather dovetail quite well with a lot of the work done in training and with a lot of work done by qualified psychologists as well, but just at a different level. My eldest is just going off. So yeah, it's not essential, but I still would suggest that there's been probably quite high demographics of people that have done at least one assistant role in the past. I believe probably there's more information in the well, there's certainly more information in the Clinical Psychologist and the Aspiring Psychologist collective books about what people's routes are, but the Alternative Handbook might well give indications about what people's routes have been. Let me just check the timescale. So for next year's intake, that will open at some point early September 2025, with the applications likely closing mid-November 2025. So there's a really nice opportunity for you to think about what can you do in the next 12 months to supercharge your experiences and your ability to really stand out on that form next year. Do I need research experience or experience as an AP before applying? Really, there needs to probably be some disseminations. So I know that you've done your undergraduate psychology. So of course there'll be research there. Could you write that up for publication? That might be a really nice use of your time in the next 12 months. Could you present it somewhere? Could you do a poster somewhere? Because that obviously all counts as well. Could you, generate other publications by contacting, like I said earlier, I don't know if you were tuned in then, Sonia, but could you contact BPS journals and, pitch something, or the Psychologist magazine, for example, and pitch something there and get that. So it's not just research, it's dissemination. Could you maybe join a local research panel, start going to research meetings, hope to meet someone that needs some help with their research and be that person? So those are my answers to that question. Hope that's helpful, Sonia. Apologies for so many questions and feeling a little lost. No, it's absolutely okay. It's what I'm here for. Alison, thank you for your question. As an undergrad student, would you recommend going straight for the PhD or doing the master's before? So people do tend to call it a PhD, but it's not technically a PhD. If you're going to clinical psychology, because there would need to be clinical placements that you do, whereas of course a PhD traditionally would just be academic stuff. You'd just be doing the writing bit, whereas with the DClinPsy, you'll need to do your thesis, which is your doctoral research, but you'll also need to fulfill all your competencies, do your placements, do your reflection, do your logs, do your coursework, to evidence your learning and to advance your thinking and formulation skills. So unless you're on one particular course as an undergrad, it's quite unlikely that you'll be able to go straight from being an undergraduate to, for example, getting a paid position on a doctorate in clinical psychology. There is one university which you will know if you're at it, because at the end of every, I think is it Hull? I think it's Hull. At the end of year 2, you then have to apply for, someone will point out if I'm wrong, I think it's Hull, certainly one of the northern ones. You have to apply to see if you are going to then continue on to the doctorate. If you're not already at that uni, you will know, because then it's up to you to find the other courses via the Clearinghouse website to apply to, unless you're talking about whether you actually are going to go on and do a PhD. Maybe you're not talking about a funded clinical psychology route. Let me know what it is you mean, Alison. Give me a little bit more context. But usually what we see, of course, there's one exception, let me tell you that one as well in a moment, is that people tend to need some years working, getting relevant experience before they then get accepted onto doing a funded clinical psychology training program. Some universities, so this is my exception, other than the whole university, some universities have selection tests as part of their application via Clearinghouse, and those selection tests mean that anybody potentially could be offered an interview if they score very highly on those selection tests. So some universities offer those screening tests to everybody who applies to them, and if you're in the top percentage, you might then find yourself being called for interview. But it's worth checking out the individual requirements of those courses. Yeah, it's not necessarily as straightforward as it might seem that you can go straight from undergrad to postgrad. Off the top of your head, do you know any courses that offer EMDR training? No, they don't, because EMDR training is only available to third year stage clinical psychology or counselling psychology trainees in their third year. That's the only time you'd be able to apply to do that. But if you were in your third year, it might be that your trust is happy to pay for you to do that, or that you're able to self-fund that yourself. I had to self-fund for my own training, and then you'd be able to do stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 training in your final year. But other than that, you'd need to be a qualified psychologist. I think I think maybe you can get on it as a qualified CBT therapist. But you'd need to check the individual requirements. The lady I did my training with was Sandy Reichman, SandyRichman. Let me just see if I can find her. I would absolutely recommend her. Little advert for Sandy. I don't get paid to do it, but let me just share that with you so that you know what you're looking for. And it should probably have the course requirements on her website of what the so eligibility will be on here. So who is able to apply? I think my internet's on a bit of a go slow. There you go. So that's all about who is able to. So clin psychs, counselling psychs, ed psych, forensic psychs, psychiatrists, mental health nurses, counsellors or psychotherapists with the full details there, and clinical psychology trainees or forensic psychology trainees in their final year as a full-time practitioner. So if you're part-time for any reason, then that would suggest that you're only able to do it in the final year, the final stage. I love being trained in EMDR. I really, really like it, but hope that is helpful, Sarah. So it wouldn't form part of your training, but that said, you might well end up on placement with somebody who is EMDR trained, and you might get exposure to it, but you wouldn't be able to use that until you've had formal training from somebody who's qualified and licensed to be able to deliver that to you. Is that helpful, Sarah? I do hope so. Sonia, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Victoria, what does Victoria say? Do you know if any EdPsych doctorates are funded? Yes, EdPsych doctorates are funded, and I believe that the applications for that are also now let me have a look. I know it's usually, yeah, so it's funded training scheme. So it's called the EPFT. Let's have a look about the scheme. When does it say? So deadlines, application start date. Let me share this with you. here we go. So hopefully you can see it. So application start date's Wednesday the 4th of September, opens midday, so that is open already. References need to be in by Tuesday the 29th of October. Application deadline is Wednesday the 30th of October, so it's a bit of a speedier turnaround, with the interview and shortlisting being Friday the 21st of May, the deadlines, and offers for courses will be with people by Wednesday the 26th of March. So it is really tight, because in clinical it goes on into spring and beyond, almost summer really. So yeah, interviewing and shortlisting, that is quite early, isn't it? 21st of March. So there will be more information there about where the course centres are. Here we go. So there's Birmingham, Bristol, Exeter, Manchester, Newcastle, Nottingham, Sheffield, East Anglia, Tavistock, Southampton, UCL, and University of East London. And so you can see all the place numbers there. There is an episode of the podcast which I did, which has been very popular. Let me just search for that, which gives you more information. How to become head psych, Dr. Michelle Dowell. See if it comes up there. Here we go. Let me share this with you so that you know what you're looking for. Here we go. So this video here, how to become an educational and child psychologist with Dr. Michelle McDowell. That is a very good watch on YouTube, or you can check it out on wherever you get your podcasts. I actually think on my podcast, that is my 3rd most downloaded ever episode as an MP3. It's like about 2,000 episodes or something. So it's obviously a very popular episode, that one. Let me just stop sharing there. Hope that is helpful, Victoria. Alison, as I'm looking to apply for masters, I'm a bit lost in what to explore further and what that could mean for a DClinPsy. Okay, so yes, it was you that asked me about the going straight to the PhD. So what masters do is it evidences that you're able to work at the next level above undergraduate study, because of course what we know about the DClinPsy is that it's 2 levels above the undergraduate degree. So if you perhaps got a 2-2, then you might want to think, or if you've got a low 2-1 or just a 2-1, you might want to think about evidencing that you can work at a higher academic level by doing a master's. But of course, if you've got a first-class degree in your undergraduate, it may not be necessary for you to get a master's. But I don't think there's no such thing as a bad master's. If you're doing a master's that's recognised by the British Psychological Society, I don't think you'll ever be wasting your time. But of course, it is quite expensive to do a master's. So if you can afford to do a master's, you have the time, you have the resources available, then I would say the master's is going to be advantageous, because of course you'll then get some research under your belt, some more research, and you might end up with kind of placement experience, or a whole array of kind of extra knowledge from doing your master's. And then you could apply to the doctorate in clinical psychology. Hope that's helpful, Alison. If you've delivered staff training, does this count as dissemination? How would you present this in your application? So I don't know your name, LinkedIn user. If you want me to know your name, if you head along to linkedin.com/StreamYard, you can give your permissions, and then I can see your name in future. So yeah, I absolutely counted that as a dissemination. I would write that. So I would write that as Trent brackets Trent.mj brackets 2023 or whatever year it was. Give the title. I just write it as if it was a publication, basically. Give the title of what my training was, and how it was disseminated. Staff conference or something like that. That's what I would do. Yes, so I hope that's helpful, LinkedIn user, whoever you are. Let me just have a quick check on on Insta, see if I've missed any questions there. No, I don't think I have. Okay. So we're coming towards the end of our time together this evening. Hope you found it useful. If you have a moment, please stop by and leave me a recommendation on the Aspiring Psychologist podcast, which you can do on Apple Podcasts, or consider if we're connected on LinkedIn. Even if we're not connected on LinkedIn, please feel free to connect, request me. Leave me a recommendation. That would be so gratefully received. Like I said earlier, if it's your time and you're ready for the next step, please do consider coming on board to the Aspiring Psychologist membership, which you can do for £30 a month with no minimum term. People have found the replay content really, really helpful, as well as the live content. When you join the membership, you get access to all of the replay content, which gives examples of kind of clinical forms, the ways of wording things, the ways of thinking about research on your form, and then all the live content for the time that you're in the membership as well. Have we got any last minute questions before we finish? Let me have a little swig of my drink. And if you join today before 7:30, you could even come along to your first session today, which is CBT skills and formulation. Any further questions? Let me just double check on Insta. Do let me know. And please, even if you're watching on replay, please still do feel free to drop me any questions in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you found it helpful. Oh, someone's just messaging me on WhatsApp, but that's not about this. It was distracting me. Yeah, it's always my pleasure to offer you these sessions. And I do hope that you find them useful. I love creating this content for you, lovely aspiring psychologists. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you don't already subscribe to the channel on YouTube, please do. I am Dr. Marianne Trent there. If you would like to say thank you for tonight, you can also send me a little tip via my Linktree, so that I can buy myself a cup of herbal tea. And I'm Dr. Marianne Trent on Linktree, sorry, which is here. If you did want to do that, that would be so gratefully received, as I don't get paid for doing the podcast or for doing these membership sessions. No, it's not coming up. There we go. link.ee/Dr. Marianne Trent. I do spend over £500 of my own money every month creating content for the podcast. So any pennies you can spare, so gratefully received, but yeah, not obligatory by any shape or form. Yeah, I will look forward to bringing the next Q&A to you 6 p.m. on Monday the 14th of October. Just checking my diary there. And yeah, I will see you very soon. The next episode of the Aspiring Psychologist podcast will be out on Saturday at 10 a.m. on YouTube, and it will be out 6 a.m. wherever you get your podcasts, with the brand new current episode being about how we can strive for zero suicide rates, which would be incredible indeed. And that's with the brilliant Steve Phillip, who is the founder of the Jordan Legacy, which was founded in the name of his son Jordan, who died from suicide a couple of years ago now. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been my absolute pleasure. I'll just check one moment that I haven't had any comments come in and I've missed them. No, I don't think we have. Thank you again, and I'll look forward to seeing you all very soon. Take care.